Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, November 3rd, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week so far and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is a family-friendly podcast, so we do try to watch our language, although words do fly. And at the same time, guys, there are some things that might be shown that may be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, because I feel like an I Told You So is coming, and this is directed at Democrats.
Correspondent Kristen Welker, who was up late co-anchoring election night coverage. Kristen, good morning. I mean, Democrats are waking up. This is a gut punch in Virginia, but also a potential surprise in New Jersey in terms of how close it is, no matter how it turns out. What do you think this means now for this agenda that's been stalled in Congress with Democrats fighting amongst each other?
The implications are massive, Savannah. Look, while traditionally the party in power does struggle to energize its base in off-year elections, there is no doubt that alarm bells are going off within the Democratic Party. There's more pressure than ever to get something done. So you can expect the president to use the Virginia loss as a way to galvanize Democrats, the progressives and the moderates who've been fighting to try to act on his agenda. But look, for voters in Virginia and New Jersey, there is a clear sense of frustration that nothing was getting done in Washington. I was out on the campaign trail. I spoke to voters who said as much. Instead, they said there seems to be disarray, there's inaction. And remember, Savannah, the number one issue for voters in this race, if you looked at the exit polls, was the economy, those rising prices. And right now, Democrats seem unable to produce results, and that is clearly hurting them.
The economy, no question, but also education. We just saw how that was a key issue in the Virginia's governor's race, and it did not go well for the Democrats.
It didn't. And taking it a step further, Savannah, it just seems like the Democrats lost the culture wars in this election cycle, right? Virginia's new governor-elect, Glenn Youngkin, seized on a range of issues that seem to motivate parents, particularly in those all-important suburbs, which Mr. Trump lost. Issues from the controversy over mask mandates, what kids are taught in school, like critical race theory. Democrats, Terry McAuliffe in particular, tried to downplay those issues, to some extent ignore them altogether, to say that they weren't relevant. And the lesson is they may need to find a way to talk about them ahead of the midterms.
The Virginia race polls showed was going to be tight as a tick. In New Jersey, people did not think it would be too close to call the next morning. What is the takeaway from that?
No, you're absolutely right. This is perhaps one of the biggest shockers of the night. This is a state that Mr. Biden won by a whopping 16 points, Savannah. So the expectation was there would be an early call, but incumbent Governor Phil Murphy is viewed as part of the Democratic establishment, and clearly voters are rejecting that right now. Now, it's worth noting that Jack Ciattarelli kept President Trump at an arm's length, just as Youngkin did in Virginia. So you might see Republicans use that as we approach the midterms as a playbook. But the bottom line, Democrats are doing a lot of soul searching about all of this morning, Savannah.
There are lessons for Republicans and Democrats in those races, Kristen, as you point.
No, just a lesson for Democrats. Again, I feel like this is not told you so moment. I told you, been saying it for months. Democrats, the moment the Democrats had this minute minority, and I say minute, you had the House, you had the Senate, you had the presidency. You had 2 years. You have 2 years to really make your dent, to explain that putting you in this position was what was needed for us. You were put in this position to explain, and not only explain, but to show that you are the people we need you to be. And so far, you're fumbling. And again, Republicans have seized on it. Yes, there will be a Republican governor in Virginia. Never thought I'd say that. And somehow in New Jersey, it's too close to call. Too close to call. This is a wake-up call to Democrats. And again, I never consider myself Democrat because there's some things with Democrats I just don't understand, that they can have all the right ideas, but when you put pen to paper, you act like Republicans. Well, at least the moderates and the centrists do. Because I've said it before, centrist Democrats and moderate Democrats are basically Republican light. They will give conservative views from a Democratic position. It's like an oxymoron. It makes no sense. But, again, this was all bound to happen. It was not just because of the fact that they can't get Biden's bill to his desk because of two Democrats. It's not because of the fact that you have a bunch of idiots out there, and yes, I'm going to say idiots because at this time of day, I don't know what else to call it. You have a bunch of idiots who don't wear masks, who don't get vaccinated, who still believe, for some odd reason, critical race theory is still being taught in schools, but it's not. It's a law class. The only place it's being taught is in law school. But after these last couple of stories I covered about schools, might not be such a bad idea to actually put in critical race theory. Actually, might not be a bad idea to take out social studies and bring back in civics, so we can actually teach kids about the Constitution. Just saying. But again, with Democrats, I have said this and said before, this is your wake-up call. I said that you don't think the Republicans are not waiting. The Republicans are waiting for midterms. This was just the opening shot. And now, you gotta think, I don't know what it is about Democrats, but I'll say it once and I'll say it again. It's almost as if they come together during election time. But after election time, they just seem to forget that, hey, we have to go in on these canvases. We have to go in on these campaign promises that we made. We might want to make sure that we're doing it. And you're not. You're failing. You are failing. I'm sorry. I kind of went Red Skull for a moment there. But I just, it's sad because, people have such a short memory. Keep in mind, things were worse under Trump. And trust and believe, Trump is trying to find a way to extend and stall all of his court proceedings. Because he just has to, because in his mind, Trump just has to make it to 2024. That's it. Trump just has to make it to 2024. If he makes it to 2024, he is a deadlock for the Republican presidency. That's all he has to do. His main goal in life for the next 3 years is just to make it to 2024 to where he can run. He gets that far, mission accomplished. But in the meantime, Republicans are looking at midterms. Why? They want to do, and this is the reason why they're saying it should be an alarming wake-up call for Democrats, because I sat there and said this. If they don't start getting stuff done, because let's be honest, they didn't get the Voting Rights Act. They didn't get the Voting Rights Act passed. They didn't even get the George Floyd police bill reform passed. They didn't even the thing they did get passed, a COVID-19 relief bill, and one America First Rescue Plan. That was like what, almost $2 trillion. And then you already have the another $1.2 trillion plan for infrastructure. But you still have this Build Back America plan that went from 3.5 to 2 million. Now, I'm sorry, that went from 3.5 trillion to now 1.7 trillion. That was completely wrong. 3.5 trillion to 2 trillion, and now like what, 1.7? And how many things have they shaved off? Tuition-free community college, paid paternity leave. They were going to cut off Medicare. They were going to cut off they slapped it. Like, they took off the hearing and vision, but kept the dental. Which makes no sense. Considering that, yes, senior citizens do vote, and they do care about their Medicare and Medicaid. And you are not expanding it enough for them to get coverage. So, let's be honest here. And let's not forget the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. $7.29. Still $7.29 an hour. How many campaign promises have we seen the Democrats make at this point, and yet are failing to the point to where the people had enough? The people have had enough, and guess what they did? They decide to go the lesser of two evils. They pretty much went to the devil, you know. And again, how many times I've sat there and said this, guys? People may remember everything the Democrats do, but for some odd reason, when it comes to Republicans can get the idiots to vote for them, and there are more idiots out there than smart people in these states. Some of them, anyway, mostly the South. But the point I'm making is that Democrats need to use this as a five-alarm fire, because if anything, this is an example of what to expect come midterms. If you guys haven't got deals passed, if you guys have not improved America's quality of life, if you guys have not somehow gotten past these two senators between Sinema and Manchin, which again I will talk about two of them again later on this podcast. But again, it's amazing to me how we're still there. And now the Republicans are seizing those opportunities. Like I said, the midterms next year is going to be a crazy time. And it's not going to be enjoyable for Democrats. But Republicans are waiting like it's Thanksgiving. And trust and believe, Trump is, like I said, Trump is going to do everything he can to stave off all these court proceedings until 2024. Because once he gets 2024, and once he runs for presidency, he knows, because this country has a stupid obsession with the fact that a president cannot be indicted, which is not a law and is an opinion of the Department of Justice, which means they really could actually indict the president. There's no law out there, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says that can't happen. But we'll see. Moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this interesting story out of Minneapolis, because Minneapolis, Minnesota, we're also having election night to vote whether or not to defund their police and institute an Office of Public Safety. I wonder how that went.
Defund the police erupted across the city of Minneapolis and then the country. Well, tonight, Minneapolis voters cast their ballots in the first election since the city was rocked by the murder of George Floyd by a former Minneapolis police officer named Derek Chauvin. The Associated Press is now reporting that voters have rejected this ballot measure. It would have dissolved the police department as we know it in favor of something called a Department of Public Safety, which, yes, would have probably had police officers as a part of that department. Shaquille Brewster is on the ground in Minneapolis. And Shaq, this was also playing in the mayor's race. This also seemed to split the party along some familiar progressive moderate lines in the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis that, frankly, we're getting used to in Congress. What are you hearing, and why did this go down to defeat?
Yeah, Chuck, this was definitely a contentious question that Minneapolis voters had to contend with on their ballot. And you made that headline, but let's say it again. A year and a half after the murder of George Floyd, you had a majority of Minneapolis voters striking down, voting no on an amendment that would have removed or eliminated the Minneapolis Police Department and instead replaced it with this Department of Public Safety. With the latest reporting now, I'm looking at the Secretary of State's office right now, 97% of precincts reporting, 56% of voters voted no, 44% of voters voted yes, and that bar was 51%. That is what voters needed to clear in order to have this amendment be passed. I spoke to the campaign manager just a couple of minutes ago for the group, it was a coalition group against this amendment. They worked hard in opposition to this amendment, running television ads, knocking on doors, making phone calls, and they said that this is not a full celebration at this point. They say, and I'll read a statement that she said she made clear, or voters made clear, that what they want is a planned approach that includes serious consultation with communities most impacted by violent crime and over-policing. And she says the attention now shifts to holding police accountable. And that is the message that you're hearing from those who are opposed to this ballot amendment. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of disappointment for those who supported this ballot amendment. If we just kind of remind viewers of how this got on the ballot initially, this was something that in the weeks after George Floyd's death, you had a majority of city council members stand on stage in a park, and under the stage it said defund and dismantle the police. That then led to the call for voters to have their say to dramatically reform the police department. As you mentioned, if this amendment passed, there still would be police officers, but it would structurally change what this department would look like. And in the words of the supporters, it would have given the city council more power to add co-responders, add mental health professionals to the police department and respond to the calls of those protesters. So you have, we're right outside of the Yes for Minneapolis campaign party. This was the group that collected more than 20,000 signatures to get this question on the ballot. They're speaking right now. A lot of disappointment that you hear and see in that room right now. But I'll tell you, even with the voters that I spoke to throughout the day who said that they were voting no, that said they were uncomfortable with this idea of replacing the entire police department without a specific plan on what would be and what would take place of that, there's still those calls for reform. What that reform will look like, that remains to be seen at this point, Chuck.
And Shaq, there wasn't a whole lot of polling surrounding this question, but can you just give us a quick sense of what you witnessed in the days leading up to this vote that you think led to getting a no vote?
Really good point, because we did coming to this election day somewhat blind. The last real public poll that we saw heading into this was in September. It was at the start of early voting here in Minnesota. And at that point, you saw about 49%, according to that poll, of voters saying that they supported this amendment. But you still had a lot of undecided voters there. And that was before you really saw this pressure campaign of opposition really step up. I mentioned a little bit with the television ads. But even last week, for example, you had the police chief come out, a popular figure here in Minneapolis, someone who's praised with how he handled the response to the murder of George Floyd and his quick decision to fire the 4 officers. You had him give about a half-hour press conference explaining to voters why he was opposed to this amendment. And one thing that you heard from the opponents, from the police chief to the mayor who's up for re-election, we likely won't have those results, by the way, until tomorrow because of the ranked choice voting. But one consistent theme that you heard from opponents to this measure was that the idea that the new department that would come up was not defined, that it wasn't clear what it would be. It would split control between the city council and the mayor, and that was something the police chief said was just simply unworkable. He said it would be inconceivable to have a department where you had 14 bosses and not that exclusive control over the mayor. So the opposition to this amendment definitely stepped up in recent weeks. I'll tell you, I also attended a forum, a debate between advocates of this amendment and opponents of this amendment that was held in the north side of Minneapolis, a predominantly African-American neighborhood there. And you heard a lot of concern from people there. Again, there's the common theme that they want safety, they want police reform, they want accountability. That's the word you continue to hear. But there was deep distrust with saying that they were going to replace the police department without a specific plan on what was there in place of it.
Shaquille Brewster on the ground for us in Minneapolis. Like I said earlier, I feel like they might have let you vote. You've been in Minneapolis for the last off and on for so long. Anyway,
if I vote, then I would have had to pay taxes. So I'm.
Well, there's no other way I could say this except for the fact of the matter is the people have spoken. Do I think that police? Do I think if it was asked of me, does police reform need to happen? Yes. Does defund the police need to happen? Yes. I mean, police these days have been militarized, been given military-style weapons. They've been given training to kill, but not given training to negotiate, to de-escalate, to notice special behaviors or special needs. They have not been. They are not a response first. They are a attack first, then response second type of folks. Like things like qualified immunity need to be released. The fact that an officer gets multiple days before he gives his statement, while the perpetrator only has a few minutes, still is uneven. And not to mention the simple fact of the matter again, let's not forget the fact of police brutality against minorities. That is still continuing. So yeah, I mean, I get the fact that people have voted, and again, I'm disappointed in this because I still believe in change. I still believe that fact can happen. It's just simple fact of the matter is just that when it comes to Minneapolis, you would think they would do what another city has done and fire their entire police department and actually have them reapply again. Actually showed greater results than just sticking with the status quo. Because again, people want to feel safe. I'm not going to knock the fact people want to feel safe. But I feel safe rather being my own little ammo box than I do with police out there. Because I hate to say this, if you're not a black man, if you're not a black man or a black woman, or you are just anything but, if you are male, you're not going to understand this. But again, if you're a minority, then yeah, you always going to have that sense of fear, that paranoia, that level of, if you see a cop go by, will I go home tonight? No other race out there experiences that but us. Just saying. But at the same time, the whole idea of defunding the police is like, well, y'all guys just want violence to happen. Why do they always assume that when police aren't there, violence ensues? Because last time I checked, you put poverty, lack of jobs, and drugs into a situation, violence will escalate regardless, no matter how much police presence you put in there. Don't believe me? Go to the projects. But again, I'm not surprised by that because, again, there are some folks that just feel like they didn't want to take that risk and therefore decided to vote to keep the status quo intact. Unfortunately, that sucks. Speaking of things that suck, John Deere is still on strike because of the deal that they were offered. But actually, after listening to it, I can see why they threw the deal out.
There is a tentative deal on the table between the United Auto Workers and John Deere from 2 weeks ago, but in a vote, members rejected that contract proposal because most didn't think the deal was good enough, and so now they're calling for higher wages. Now, these negotiations are happening at a time when things are going very well for John Deere. Revenue for the first 3 quarters of Deere's fiscal year, they rose to more than $32 billion. Its stock this year is up 22%, so the current financial success at John Deere, that may have led to some union members to believe they deserved an even better package than the one that was rejected.
Nobody ever wants to really go out on strike. They just want a fair shake.
People are finally fed up. They're fed up and they're tired of it. And they're not going to have it anymore. They just want their share of the wealth that they helped create for the company.
Now, it's not the only company that's currently striking right now in the U.S. At Kellogg's, the cereal company, 1,400 workers walked off the job on October 5th. So that strike is heading into its second week.
So again, a company that's having record profits, a company that's not having a slow time, even a pandemic, and its workers are still on strike. I wonder why. Maybe it's because the simple fact of the matter is that, again, with most companies, the profits are kept for themselves, and at the same time, the workers get scraps. And eventually, and this is why I say, guys, unions, I say this, unions will stick together because that's how it should be. And for all those that don't know, I'm like, this is the reason why you have a 40-hour work week, why you have paid time off, why you have sick leave, all because of unions. Do not expect the corporation to turn around and give you things. That's like saying Jeff Bezos was going to give. Jeff Bezos has enough money to literally buy. If you really think about it, Jeff Bezos has enough money to literally put all of his employees in a 3-bedroom apartment and paying, and still have change left over. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk by himself, $300 billion as far as his overall value. $300 billion, money that you will never be able to spend in one lifetime. And yet, he has issues at his factories because minority workers are suing there for racial discrimination and harassment. They actually had to turn around and pay a guy who used to work at Tesla $15 million. Because again, when it comes to the dissolution of executives, and trust me, I deal with them on a daily basis. The fact that they just live in a different world. They talk about us living in a bubble. Those sons live in a bubble. At the same time, for the rest of us that live in reality, this is the truth. These corporations will steal, hide their money and everything, but enjoy the profits, the bonuses, and things of that nature, while you just simply get a paycheck. And again, I can understand that if the pie is just getting bigger, but your slice is still the same, then yes, something is very wrong. Especially with that. So I'm not against those John Deere and Kellogg's workers striking because, again, stick to the unions. Unions work. And the only way unions don't work is if they convince you that unions don't work. Even more so, don't believe me? Look at Starbucks.
Coffee Giant is raising pay for their workers right now as other union workers across the country like John Deere employees are striking in order to get better wages. Trevor Ault has the story. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, George. In the midst of this national labor shortage, this is a significant announcement from one of the country's most prominent businesses. Starbucks now says by next summer, all of its employees will make at least $15 an hour. In some areas, at least $23 an hour, with a 5% raise for employees who have been there at least 2 years. The company's North America president says this Starbucks is going to support the workers they already have, but it's also going to work to recruit people in this challenging labor market. It does, however, come as some employee unhappiness is bubbling up into calls for action. We know of workers from at least 3 stores in Buffalo that are trying to unionize, and these would be the first unions at any of Starbucks' 8,000 locations. The company says they respect workers' right to unionize, though they don't believe that it's necessary. And the fact, though, that Starbucks is making these changes to try to attract and to retain workers could be representative of a pretty major shift in leverage in favor of American workers. George?
A lot of changes happening out there. Okay, Trevor, thanks.
Again, I love how the fact almost every corporation out there says, we respect workers' rights to unionize, we just don't see why. Because again, they don't like the word union. I will say this all the time. Michael Dell of Dell Incorporated hates unions. I know this for a fact because I used to work for Dell. And so the fact of the matter is, if you mention union anywhere of his offices and it got back to him, whatever location was trying to do that got closed, everybody got let go of those jobs, he'd move everything to a different site. Because you know why? Corporations hate unions. Unions work for the people, and you think that corporations would be that, but corporations use people. Unions help people. There's a difference. So again, with Starbucks going out, oh, well, you guys don't need to do a union because you know why? We're going to raise your pay to $15, $23 in some areas, and you're going to be able to, still work. Here's the thing I say about the Fight for 15. I got nothing against Fight for 15. I still think it's a great organization, but we need to amp up the pay. If the cost of living went along with the level of productivity in the United States, we should be somewhere between $23 and $26 an hour. That's the minimum wage. But again, these are the same companies talking about, well, we can't pay these people. Yes, you can. Very few corporations were able to have profits in a pandemic market. In a pandemic financial crisis, most corporations had a profit. Best Buy, Target, Amazon, Tesla, Virgin. I can keep going. Those are companies that had profits in a labor. I always try to say a labor challenged market. Labor isn't challenged. The workers want to work. People want to work, and I keep saying this all the time. They love to sit there and say, well, there's no labor out there. Yes, there is. People want to work. They just realize in this day and age, at this time, it's not worth killing yourself over for pennies. The work-life balance these corporations say is impossible is really a pipe dream. Especially if you ever hear a corporation says, by the way, if a corporation ever sits there and says, well, we're like a family, run. Number 2, if they ever mention work-life balance, really run. They don't care about it. But Starbucks trying to come out today and say we're doing all this sounds exactly like Amazon. Oh, we're paying you $18 an hour. You get benefits from day one. What's not to like? The grueling work conditions you put your people under. That's what's not to like. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this again. Like I said before, like I said, I talked about the Build Back America Better plan, especially in the sense of the fact that they were cutting things off. However, there is some good news, I guess you can call it that they somehow came to a deal on trying to lower prescription drug costs.
Everything goes up. There's some encouraging news about drug prices. They could be going down if a new deal reached in Washington becomes law. This morning, President Biden's Build Back Better spending plan could be one step closer to passing after Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema said she would support a deal to lower prescription drug prices.
We've heard this from people across the country who have serious illnesses and can't afford their medicine.
The plan is aimed at reducing costs for seniors on Medicare and would give the government power to negotiate directly with drug companies.
It will cap out-of-pocket spending at $2,000 per year, ending the days where a life-changing diagnosis could mean thousands upon thousands of dollars in new expenses.
Nearly 1 in 4 Americans currently struggles to pay for their monthly medications, with the average adult spending $31,000 per year on prescriptions.
We've had to refinance our house to pay our medical bills.
The plan would also require drug companies to issue a rebate to insurance companies if prices outpace inflation. One major drug affected, insulin. Its price has skyrocketed up to 300% since 2010. If the government could renegotiate the price, it could reportedly save patients up to $176 per month. Pharmaceutical companies say the plan will threaten innovation and hurt research into new drugs. And the plan is by no means a done deal.
What I see are shell games, budget gimmicks.
Moderate Democrat Joe Manchin is worried about the debt. He's demanding more details about the spending in Biden's overall plan, valued at nearly $2 trillion.
The perfect is going to be the enemy of the good if we don't sit down and be rational about what we're doing.
President Biden is dismissing concerns that Joe Manchin will block the overall plan, saying, quote, Joe will be there.
I'm pretty sure Joe's going to be there, but he's still going to be in the same position he was. Guys, this is the thing I keep saying this entire time. It's the same story. This is how you lost Virginia. This is how you're probably going to wind up losing New Jersey if they once they get to count the votes. Especially the simple fact of the matter is they came to a deal about lowering drug prices. Drug prices have been talked about since the senior citizens group has grown larger in members. Again, guys, this is not surprising at all. That, yes, as more people are getting into those 50s and up, that they will be on medications. Those medications are costly, especially on fixed incomes, and especially for those that weren't able to have 401ks live off of. So again, I find it amazing that the drug companies have so much pull, but it's only because they lobby, because that's how they got cinema. That you don't believe. I mean, it's just like the same way how the coal mine industry has Manchin. They have Manchin right by the cojones, and they have and lobbyists have Kristen Sinema. You know, but again, the point I'm making is just that it's still a whole thing when they talk about, well, we're going to lower prices. And again, I have to give to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders said it best. We are one of the very few countries where the drug market is locked off to us. We can't go to Canada. We can't go to Mexico. We cannot go overseas we cannot go overseas for prescription drugs. Why? Because if we open up the markets, if we open America up to all these other markets, the drug companies here, along with the health insurance companies, would lose. Their profits would go out the window. And that's the reason why they lobby so hard to make the U.S. a locked off area. I wish I could make this up, but that's truly capitalism at its finest, to where they basically eliminate competition in order to make sure they keep on making profits. Things I wish I could make up, but are entirely true. At the same time, again, the whole thing about Joe Biden sitting there saying Joe Manchin's going to be there. Oh, he will, because he's been singing the same song. He has been singing the exact same doggone song this entire time. Oh, we got to see what the numbers are. We got to see where this is going. And supposedly Kristen Sinema is on board with this drug plan. And yet, good old Joe is doing what he does best. Protects his seat. Because West Virginia right now, looking like it might get picked up by Trump. And maybe it should at this point. Because, again, with the Democrats, they need to learn a lesson. That one thing that Republicans do well that Democrats don't is unity. Even more so that we talk about the drug trade. Check this out. That again, drug companies, and the reason why I say this is messed up, so this other story that we have, drug companies wins a opiate crisis lawsuit in California, where the judge actually ruled in favor of the top drug manufacturers who were being sued by local governments to cover the cost of the nation's opioid epidemic. Well, it's only an epidemic when white people get killed, but I digress. Where the judge sat there and simply said, and I quote, "There is simply no evidence to show that the rise in prescriptions was not the result of the medically appropriate provision of pain medications to patients in need." So again, there's a movie out there, guys. I keep talking. There's a movie out there that I recommend if you ever get a chance on Hulu just to go watch. It's called Dope Sick. Explains the opioid crisis and how we got there. Explains how Oxycodone, and Percocets, because the companies that manufacture those drugs made billions over a drug that could easily overdose, get people addicted, and kill them. And yet, where's the drug company out? There are drug companies out there who will not be made liable for their prescriptions causing so many deaths. miracle. I mean, there's just no other way I can say it. And yet at the same time, people don't believe that we don't need these things done. I still to this day wonder how. Even more so as shipping containers are still sitting off the side of the coast of California, New York, and other areas. There's a new thing going on with trains which I never thought I'd hear about again. Stagecoach robbing, 2021 style.
Suspected of pilfering products off trains in California, leaving thousands of boxes tossed off Union Pacific trains and left scattered on the tracks. It may sound like the train robberies of the Wild West, but it's happening today as the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach struggle to process idling ships, adding to the already snarled supply chain in our pandemic recovery. Our NBC Los Angeles crew caught on camera several container doors swung wide open. That section of the track bordered by homeless encampments on both sides. NBC LA capturing on video these two individuals along the tracks, one hopping on a slow-moving train carrying what appears to be bolt cutters.
Cargo thieves and organized cargo theft groups is that they will target commodities that they know that they can sell. So they're going to hone in on those commodities that are either high in demand or shortage and harder for people to get. That way they can get a better return on the sale of it after they steal it.
Back in August, officials found $100,000 worth of merchandise taken from a Union Pacific train in a homeless encampment in Pomona, California. The Pomona police telling NBC News that cargo trains are, quote, hit continually and almost weekly. Police saying the stolen items in August appeared to be new with packaging intact, including vehicle tires, small kitchen appliances and fixtures, major appliances, auto-related parts, clothing, shoes, cleaning supplies, baby-related items, and various household items. Union Pacific issuing a statement saying they're aware of the thefts and are working with local law enforcement. The stealing comes as the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are clogged with 100 ships waiting to dock, a supply chain in crisis worldwide.
Freight at rest is freight at risk. So when you see more cargo sitting around, you're certainly going to create a bigger opportunity for cargo theft. The other major ingredients in the increase are going to be the demand and the shortages.
And the National Insurance Crime Bureau says cargo theft is likely to increase through 2021.
All right, Jolene Kent joins us tonight from Lincoln Park, Los Angeles, where more of this has happened. And Jolene, in addition to this disturbing train theft, you also have some new reporting on more slowdowns in the supply chain?
Yeah, that's right. In addition to the theft and the boxes that you see here behind me, we also know, according to the experts, that warehouse space is at a premium. In fact, warehouse vacancies have fallen to record lows here in the Los Angeles area. It's effectively sold out. So what does that mean for your stuff in the holiday season? Even if it's coming off of a port and it's coming on a container on these railways, it doesn't necessarily get to you or to your store in time because there may not be enough warehouse space, and that warehouse building, it takes time, and those warehouses, they can't go up fast enough, Tom.
So in other words, Christmas is going to be interesting this year. I just thought that was crazy just because this is the level of what we've gotten to, folks, that, again, the simple fact of the matter, it's just that how in the world have we gotten this far? Well, pandemic, and vaccines, and not getting people to work. Welcome to the perfect storm of the country that we're in right now. Especially to the point that who knew you could sit there and still say they are robbing trains in 2021. I know it's not funny to laugh at. It's not a laughing matter because, again, with those items that get stolen and resold out there, wherever they may be, it's just like, who knew who had on their bingo card that robbing trains was still going to be a thing on this bingo card of 2021? That's all I'm saying. But regardless of that, we're going to go into our feel good segment because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things, sometimes doom and gloom, make you lose your faith in humanity. But hey, it's the middle of the week. It is Wednesday. Tomorrow's Friday for Thursday for some of us. Some of us are Friday. So we want to, I'm not going to say Christmas cheer. I refuse that. I've been trying to avoid that Mariah Carey song this entire time. Let the turkey and Shirley Caesar have her moment. And I would play her video, but apparently she does not like it, and she DMC and her company DMCs everything that comes out. That being said, we are going to find a story that's going to uplift your spirits and put a little spring in your step. And I like this story because, number one, it's always kids that just make you find the joy in everything. And just makes you feel like the next generation may have it better than us.
Seven-year-old Akeem Mims from Akron, Ohio, in the fight of his life, but still thinking about others. Diagnosed with bone cancer, his dad, Rashawn, shaving his son's head, then shaving his own.
Now we look like twins.
Soon, he would begin chemo treatments at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And while there, Akeem had an idea.
Hey, Akeem, what you working on, man?
For all the kids on the floor.
You gift bags for all the kids on the floor?
Yeah.
Akeem making gift bags for the other children on his floor to let them know he's thinking about them. Stuffed animals and candy.
What you dropping in there right now?
Popcorn balls.
Nice.
Dozens of bags and new friends.
We're gonna make all these kids so happy tonight.
And the balloons.
They look good.
And right here tonight,
David.
Akeem and his father.
I passed out all the gift bags and hoping that the kids will feel better.
Akeem telling us he hopes it will help the other kids feel better too.
He really taught me that no matter what you're going through in life, there's always room to still spread positivity and spread joy throughout the world.
And tonight, we're happy to report Akeem now out of the hospital, now home, recovering until his next treatment. And doctors say his prognosis is good. And that is good news. Akeem, we're cheering you on.
Yep, I concur. That is good news. I always love to see, because honestly, F cancer and everything in every form that's out there. But also at the same time, it's always kids. Why is it always kids that seem to be that can just find the bright light in anything? I mean, to be diagnosed with cancer, but still you're thinking of others, even the point to where you make gift bags and balloons. And again, it's this random acts of kindness, man. And I have been saying this, and I'll never stop saying it. If you really want to make an impact in somebody's life, it's a random act of kindness, whether it's a day, a minute, an hour, or a lifetime. If you have the ability to basically impact somebody's life, do that. The world could use more random acts of kindness like that young man right there. And hopefully he will get past his cancer because, again, F cancer. That being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting everybody know it's been uploaded as this is pre-recorded. We will get back to doing live very soon, hopefully. That being said, guys, I do want to do some shameless plugging before I get out of here. I do got to talk about my brother, Big BZA Dot, which you can find him, A the Von Witherspoon on Facebook or Big BZA Dot on socials, where he has a couple of shows, the Smoking Trailers, every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m., in which he shows videos of movies and video game trailers that he finds interesting and therefore wants to share them with you. He also has the REF podcast, like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by World Star, so only for the grown and intended, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. He also has a video game channel called Making Plays, which you can also see on Facebook Live, so definitely check him out. A the Von Witherspoon on Facebook or Big BZA Dot on all socials. And also, let me not forget, Ari and Gee present Geek Salad, which you can find them on Facebook and on YouTube. I want to definitely shout out those guys for allowing me to share my podcast on their channels. I certainly appreciate that. Definitely check them out. They do talk about the things for the culture. And nothing puts enough stress on a black dude when you hear another black dude say in the middle of a contest, "Man, do it for the culture." Pressure. But anyway, like those guys. Ari and Gee present Geek Salad, which you can find them on YouTube and on Facebook, so definitely check them out. Of course, it's for yours truly. The link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for all of my Facebook and YouTube groups. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit and Off Limits Podcast. You can definitely like and share and subscribe from there and let people know. And if you like it, please let me know. If you don't like it, I still want to know your opinions. Like I said, I'm an opinionated person. I still want to know people's opinions of it, whether you agree or disagree with me. I still want to know. And like I said before, also, guys, the schedule still hasn't changed, although sometimes I have been a little bit lacking. I apologize. But we will get back on track soon enough. And at the same time, again, before I wrap this up, please get vaccinated. Just because COVID is real. COVID is real. Its deviants are real. Its variants are real. I just had a Loki moment. But again, the variants are real. And at the same time, they are still hurting. They're still putting people in hospitals and even causing death. The only way we're going to counteract this vaccine, this COVID virus, the only way to do that is to simply get the vaccines. Get the boosters if you can. Mask up. Please protect yourselves. I cannot stress this enough. If you are out and about, There's no shame in wearing a mask. Protect yourself, because if you protect yourself, you're protecting others, and that's how we get all past this. But we all have to do our part. This is not a debate. We all have to do our part. That's how we're gonna get past all this. No more of this, this division, this dividing, as they like to call it. Sometimes some things just have to have an all-in moment, and that's how we get past it. That being said, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack we got here, it's all about staying informed. We're not trying to change minds, persuade you. We are simply doing what the news stations of old did. Give you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind for yourself. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive, we move forward, we try to right the wrongs of our history's past by doing the things now that should have been done a long time ago, like electing our first Madam Vice President who is black. Still hope for Michelle Obama and her husband in 2024, because at this rate, the Democrats need Obama in order to keep Trump out the White House at this moment, or Michelle, if she ran for president, landslide. But anyway, that being said, guys, thank you all for watching. And again, if you're watching this on the playback as it gets uploaded, please comment if it's live. I still want to know what you guys think. And aside from that, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will get through this. Peace.